Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Copilot Compass, where each week we take a deep dive into Microsoft 365 Copilot. As always, I have the pleasure of being joined by my esteemed colleague, fellow Copilot enthusiast, and resident smart guy, Logan.
Thanks, Grant. Happy to be here.
Logan, why don't you tell the folks at home a little bit more about what they can expect in this week's episode?
Yeah. So as always, we'll get started with our question of the week, and then we'll get into our topic, which is Copilot and legal. So we're going to be covering some easy to use scenarios to aid your legal teams with Copilot. Yeah, and then stay tuned to the end for a sneak preview of what we have coming out next. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.
Awesome, let's jump in.
Let's do it. Okay, so let's get into our question of the week. And remember, you can submit your own question by either leaving a comment on this video or by emailing the email address in the description. So this week, our question is, what role does Copilot play in data analysis and decision-making for business leaders?
Data analysis and decision making. Okay. Yeah, I think it depends on the company. I mean, you've got, more progressive companies that were early adopters of AI, have been on this journey for some time where, that might be a little bit more ingrained in the company culture and in the decision-making process. But I think for a majority of companies, this stuff's all still pretty new. You've probably got some leaders in the company that are really leveraging AI to drive data-driven decision making, and then you've probably got other leaders who, you know, don't really even know what AI is. So it really just depends. I think the ones that are doing it well, it supplements decision making but doesn't replace it. Like you're going to use, yeah, I think we've shown it in a few episodes, I believe, but like the kind of chat with your data type of scenarios, you've got an Excel spreadsheet or Power BI dashboard, and you can kind of ask some questions of, what are some trends that you're seeing? Help me understand this information, month over month, what's our best selling product, like that type of simple question and answer. But again, you're not going to make a business decision off of that alone. You can kind of use it to spark some ideas or maybe validate some hypotheses that you have. But, I guess the big takeaway for me here is it's a supplement, but not a replacement, if you will. I don't know. What do you think, Logan?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably, one of the best use cases that you're going to be using it for is that, yeah, like it's data analysis. It's not going to be exactly solving and using in every decision. I think one other thing that it could be helpful for is kind of just like staying informed with like kind of like the summarizing news articles, stuff like that, or like, looking up a quick rundown about a company you're interested in, stuff like that, just like little tidbits of information that you could get, other ways, but Copilot might just make it a little bit easier. Yeah.
Oh, well said. Awesome. That was a good question. I think
Yeah.
a difficult question, but a fun one.
Yeah.
All right. We ready to talk about Copilot and legal?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. So today, Logan and I are going to be talking about Copilot for your legal teams. Now, we should preface this by saying that neither Logan or I have passed the bar exam in our respective states of Oregon and California. Nor are we, deeply well versed in legal processes. But we do want to share kind of some really good, easy to use, easy to deploy use cases for your legal teams that, aren't going to be necessarily like industry specific, but more kind of some of those common challenges that legal teams are facing. And, these are important because the landscape in legal is changing, faster than it ever has. I mean, we're seeing increased complexity in regulations and contracts, compliance. All of that is evolving and evolving at a speed faster than it has before. So this is really going to require our legal teams to work smarter and use tools where we can. In Copilot, both Copilot Chat, M365 Copilot, and then of course with extensions and plugins and agents with Copilot Studio can really, help a legal team here. And what role does it play? Uh, Holistically or at a high level, it's going to help with, documentation review. I think something we've seen a lot come up in previous episodes is summarizing information, asking questions of material that's shared with you. That's going to be a super important use case for us here as we talk about legal teams. And then drafting legal, communications. Now, we're not saying creating, we're saying drafting, coming up with the first round. giving you a good starting place with, communications that you're doing or contracts that you're working on. Another big one, and again, you're seeing themes here, research. Copilot's a great research tool. So kind of helping you understand those complex, regulations and compliance policies that are coming into your environment. Copilot's great about summarizing information for you, citing its sources, and helping you understand, the impact that it might have to your organization. Now, why is all this important? What are the benefits? We're seeing that companies that are good with this technology, they're reducing some of their spend on outside counsel. They're also lowering, the costs that they're going to incur with, internal reviews. We're seeing some faster contract turnaround times. And then, of course, both a speedier and improved, communication cycle. So, we're going to talk about a couple of use cases here today. The first one we're going to show you is summarization of a memorandum of understanding. Very basic. We built you a demo document, but we'll kind of show you how Copilot can help us break that down and how we can ask, very specific questions of that document to try to, avoid having to read through it if it was a very lengthy document, and, kind of get right to the point and right to the answer. And then our second use case is we're going to kind of show that research scenario. So how we can use Copilot to understand new regulations that are coming out and try to understand the impact to our business. So again, before we dive in, one more preface: we are not lawyers. This is not something that we are directly involved in on a day-to-day basis, but we are going to show you some practical applications of Copilot and how it can really help, really any legal team. Okay, so our first use case is using Copilot to help summarize a legal document, or in this case, we've got a memorandum of understanding. Logan shared it with me. It's a memorandum of understanding between our theoretical company, the Jolly Roger Company, and then maybe a prospective client of ours, the Blackbeard Company. So we've got this document now. Again, we've only built this for the sake of this demo. We understand that your typical MOU is going to be quite longer than this and a bit more detailed, but this will still give us the gist of the idea here. Now I'm using Word, the web-based version of Word here. So I'm not using the Word apps. Could certainly do that there as well. What we can see is it's already started the summary for me. So it's given me, that high level overview. Let's say I'm only trying to skim this really quickly. I'm heading into another meeting, or maybe I'm on the road. I'm looking at this on my phone. I can see this quick summary here, and this all looks fine and good. Now, maybe I want to ask a specific question, like let's say I'm curious, or I know I'm going to be asked in my next meeting. I'm going to, what are the payment terms here? So I might want to just ask Copilot exactly that question. What are the payment terms? So I'm asking it a very specific question, treating it like a Q&A type of agent. And, rather than me having to scroll what would typically be a very lengthy document to get the answer I'm looking for, I can just see it right here with Copilot. So it's told me the revenue distribution. It's got operational costs that are listed in here. I'm also seeing a payment schedule. Now, let's say that I know that this was something that we were negotiating back and forth with. So I want to see exactly that language. I click on it. Copilot has referenced it. It highlighted it for me when I moved down here, and it can show me exactly, that payment schedule. So again, great for summarization, great for that kind of quick review, really good for asking very specific questions of documents, and hopefully something that your legal teams are going to find valuable. Okay, so now we're going to look at how you can use Copilot to help your legal teams better understand new regulations or compliance things that are coming into your work stream. So in this case, we are going to take a look at DORA. It's a new EU policy around some cybersecurity regulations. Maybe we've kind of heard about it. We know it's going to impact us. Let's get an understanding of it. Now, before Copilot, we're going to have to, go look at some trusted sources that maybe have summarized this and its key impacts, or go read through the actual, lengthy documentation that covers the entirety of those regulations. Now, it's a good effort, to do that for sure, but you're reading through a lot of white noise. There's probably a lot of stuff in there that really doesn't impact the work that you do or in the spaces that you operate in. So, as a good starting place, our legal teams can use AI tools like Copilot to help us, sort of break down those regulations. And even if you deem it's necessary, we're going to have some folks in our legal team read through this entire document. This is still a good starting place for you because it can kind of help you get a high level understanding and start to see, okay, what are some of the areas that I need to be, uber focused on for my organization and the areas that we operate in. And then you can go read, with that mindset in place, you go read through the document and a little bit more efficiently. So um, let's just start out with a simple question, high level overview. Tell me about the EU's DORA Act, which I suppose you don't have to say Act, DORA, the A in DORA is Act. But so we can see here it's given us a summary. The DORA is the Digital Operational Resilience Act. It's an EU regulation, went into effect in January 17th, 2025. Looks like at its high level, it's going to strengthen the digital resilience of the financial sector. So we can see here already, okay, digital resilience, financial sector, we're getting an understanding of who this might impact and how. Key objectives, um, harmonize digital resilience rules, mitigate ICT risk, ensure continuity of financial services. Who's going to have to comply? Over 20 types of financial institutes, but we can see the common ones here: banks, insurance companies, investment firms, crypto asset service providers. What are the core requirements? We can see those summarized at a very high level here. Now, we can go a couple of directions here. So that obviously is a very high level overview. I mean, we're covering it in the course of, one page of text. Maybe I want to ask questions on, okay, tell me more about the ICT risk management. You know what? Why don't we go ahead and do that? So we'll say, tell me more about ICT risk management in DORA. Now, one thing I should note here, we could certainly use Researcher for this, the new agent that's available through Microsoft. We're going to show you Researcher in a future episode coming up here either next week or the following. So we'll table using that. For now, we're just going to use regular, the Copilot Chat interface here. And I'm using web-based because we are not operating in the space that we're demoing here. So using just the web-based version. So I can see here, it's giving me a further breakdown here. Now, maybe, our company, theoretical company for the sake of this demo, is an infrastructure as a service provider. So I want to ask Copilot, how will this act impact our company if we are a infrastructure as a service provider? And as usual, Copilot is smart enough to pick up on my typo there. All right, so as an infrastructure as a service provider, here's how it's going to have a significant impact on our operations. And so here we go. I've kind of gotten some impacts there that it's showing us. So maybe, yeah, it's suggested for us exactly what I was going to demo next. We want a checklist, like a readiness assessment for our company. So we'll just say, can you create a readiness assessment for our infrastructure as a service company? Doing its analysis here. Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and we're going to say fill it out. Okay. There we go. Asking for a full checklist to determine our readiness rather than just kind of that high level it gave us first. All right. And it looks like it's giving me a downloadable filled checklist. So we can take a look at this. It's popped it up for me. It looks like it's given me an Excel in this case. We'll go ahead and open up this Excel. And let's see what it came up with. All right, so it's categorized some questions and then it's got the item. Let's take a look at what some of these are. So now here we go. It's got like its full, um, do we have an ICT risk management framework? Yes or no? So in this case, given us yes, no, it looks like it's actually kind of populated some scores. Not sure how it came up with these scores, but it's kind of completed it for us. I think honestly, probably my fault with some confusion in the prompting I provided with Copilot here, but and then it's got some comments here. So this is a good starting place for us. Now, where do I go next? Maybe I need to meet with leadership or some folks on the business side and start to take a look at some of these things. Maybe I need to go meet with, my IT leadership and start to actually work through some of these questions. So this is, again, a great starting place for us. We're no longer having to spend a lot of time thinking through some of these questions. We've got a good draft here. And then maybe, of course, as we read through this, we're going to find some things that aren't relevant for our organization, or maybe we see this set of questions and we think of some more questions that we need to add to it based on the understanding that Copilot helped feed us on this regulation. So again, really good starting place for us in the matter of, this 5-10 minute window here. We've gotten a high level summary. We've broken down, some of the components of it a little bit further. And now we've got ourselves a starting place for a readiness assessment to make sure that our infrastructure as a service company is ready to meet these new criteria. In today's journey of the Copilot Compass, we took a look at how Copilot and other AI tools are integrating in the legal space. So we took a look at some basic scenarios that we thought might be applicable for really any legal department. We talked about how you can use Copilot to help summarize documents. In our case, it was a memorandum of understanding, but maybe you have other legal documents where a quick summary would be helpful, as well as using sort of that Q&A type of experience to ask specific questions about the document rather than having to scroll through it and try to find it. Then we showed you how you can use Copilot for research to help you understand and your legal teams understand new regulations that come into your industry. So we hope you found some of these helpful.
Yeah. And yeah, if you work in the legal space or, you work with people who are in it, yeah, try this out. I mean, hopefully, yeah, some of these demos can be applicable to what you do every day. And if you enjoyed, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. Mm, And remember that we have Q&A sessions every episode, so leave us those questions. And new episodes come out every Tuesday, and stay tuned to get a sneak preview of what we have coming out next.
Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.